I'd like to warmly welcome all of you today and to enjoy the information that I have to present on caring for your mental health and why what you eat and drink is so important for your mental health care and how nutrition can support the treatment of anxiety and depression. As I said a moment ago, I'd like to warmly welcome each of you to my talk today, and thank you very much for taking the time to join me this morning, and I look forward to sharing my knowledge with you. I hope you enjoy the information presented today and that you find it helpful and useful as well. The slides that I'm using today, you are more than welcome to have, and I know that Dunera will put them up for you to be able to access, and it's absolutely okay to keep them and use them. I just want to share my knowledge and information so that as many people as possible can benefit from it. My aims for today's very brief talk, we've only got an hour, are to introduce you to some of the reasons why you may be experiencing anxiety or depression, to explain the multifactorial picture that mental health actually is, to discuss what you ideally could be doing to support your health, to explain why there is no magic pill, and wonderfully to share how you can continue to have your cake, your coffee, or your chocolate. For those of you listening today who know me, I love chocolate, I love cake, and if I'm able to have it, I totally believe that all my clients, everybody should be able to have a treat every day. It comes down to what type of treat you have and when you have it. So it's not about deprivation at all. It is about continuing to live while we help treat whatever your condition is. Some interesting points on mental health. Approximately 3 million Australians are currently living with anxiety or depression. Anxiety is the most common mental health condition in Australia. And as we know at the moment, and as I certainly see in my clinical practice, so many people are struggling with a heightened level of anxiety because of the current COVID pandemic. One of the things I'd like to explain and help you understand as we go through the talk today is why that is, and what you may be experiencing is that things that didn't upset you in the past or didn't have a reaction within you in the past are now starting to upset you or have some sort of effect. And there are very good reasons why. And the wonderful news is that there are a lot of things that we can do to help calm that and bring you back down to a better state of mind. The other thing as well to show you today is that anxiety and depression disorders have some similarities in their pathophysiology and may occur together. We know that anxiety and depression can be linked to family history, life circumstances, particularly what we're all experiencing at the moment, drug and alcohol use, and psychosocial issues. In a few slides, I'm going to show you a diagram and go through it with you to actually break everything down to give you a better understanding of some of these factors. They may also stem from biochemical imbalances, and stress can absolutely 100% contribute to the development of anxiety and depression. And it's my goal to also explain to you why that is. Above and below, when I did my talk on osteoporosis, I used this slide as well, and I will always use this slide because what I see and what I believe is that so often it's 90% below the surface that is what's needing the treatment. And with mental health as well, it's so much more than what we just see on the surface. And we all know that everybody has a story behind the facade, and it's getting into that story that is so important and working out what's driving that story so that we know exactly what to do to help bring you back to a state of health. This is my wonderful diagram that will always be in every talk that I do as well. And this is to show you the multifactorial picture of anxiety and depression. So in the center there, you can see mental health. I haven't put anxiety or depression or anything else, just the title, mental health. Up the top, you'll see in the first box, inflammation and acidity. What we know is that an inflamed and acidic body absolutely impacts mental health. Many people are experiencing chronic conditions, be it autoimmune disease, be it stress, anything at all, and the body carries an amount of inflammation. Generally, it becomes chronic, and the acid-alkaline balance in the body shifts. When that happens, the chemical balance in the body, the way the body is meant to function, goes off kilter. And that in itself can start to impact our mental health. Down the bottom, you'll see a square, gut and liver health. If the gut is unhappy for whatever reason, and there's inflammation as well, a lot of our happy chemicals for our brain, our neurotransmitters, are actually made in the gut and then go into the brain, because our gut is actually known as our second brain. So if there is any problem with the gut, common symptoms that we know that you may be experiencing: constipation, bloating, pain, irritable bowel, or you've actually got a gut condition or an autoimmune disease, reflux, so on and so forth, that is 100% creating inflammation in your body. That in itself stops or impairs the production of the chemicals, the hormones, which absolutely affects your mood as well. The gut microbiome, so the organisms that naturally live in our gut that we want, they are very, very important in the production of a lot of nutrients needed for mental health. So the more that we support the gut, bring down the inflammation, not by suppressing it, but by helping your body to release the inflammation and bringing down the acidity and helping you become more alkaline, the better off your mental health will already be. We also know, to the left, you'll see emotional and psychological stress and trauma. If we just take the current coronavirus COVID pandemic, there are many, many people all around Australia, particularly in Victoria at the moment, suffering with an incredible amount of emotional and psychological stress. What does stress do? When we are stressed, a particular hormone called cortisol is secreted. That amount of that cortisol has impacts on the body. For example, it impairs the regular functioning of many of our organs. It leads to inflammation. It impairs the stress response aspect of the body. It impairs the immune system. It tightens and affects the functioning of the gut. It slows down the liver's detoxification processes. And what happens is a vicious cycle is formed where more inflammation and acidity is produced, increasing the trauma in the body, increasing the cortisol release, upsetting the gut further, etc., etc. What we need to do, because there's no way we can say don't worry or don't stress. That's ridiculous. There's no way that's going to happen. You may also find that you find it difficult to meditate or to just sit and be because you're filled with racing thoughts or palpitations or the need to move your body. That is all understandable because of the different chemicals that are being released. So what we actually need to do is help your body manage the stress so that you have a calmer feeling within you, so that no matter what's going on around you, you're actually able to still remain calmer, more grounded. And what we eat absolutely impacts that, as well as lifestyle measures. And then of course there's herbal medicines, there's nutrients, counseling, acupuncture. The list is endless of all the things that can support. One of the things that I also really want to acknowledge now is the absolute place for orthodox medication, whether it's an antidepressant or anti-anxiety, whatever medications you're on, natural therapies can absolutely work alongside. What we also know when it comes to anxiety, particularly and depression, is that people may say they've been put onto antidepressants, but they're not noticing much of a difference. The reason that may be is because they're not clinically depressed or having anxiety, but due to the inflammation in the body, due to the stress in the body, due to the burden on the gut, etc., their body's ability has been depressed and they are experiencing the symptoms. And by supporting that, will already start to help them lift out of some of that anxiety and mood. We also know that peri and post-menopause absolutely can impact anxiety and depression. Estrogen is one of our most wonderful hormones that protects women in so many ways. And as it starts to decline and change through perimenopause and then into menopause itself, there are so many changes that are happening in the female body that it's often not able to go into its next way of support that it's meant to. And so you start to experience a whole bunch of different symptoms. The good news is that a lot of that can absolutely be treated, but it's not about just throwing something at you. We actually need to support the fatigue that's in the body, the imbalances that occur, the inflammation that happens, and then you start to feel the difference. We also know with mental health, down on the right bottom there, that genetics and family history absolutely do play a role. What I like to say to people though is one thing we must always remember is even if there's a genetic potential for a condition, it doesn't mean that you have to experience it yourself or to the same extent. We know that genes can be switched on through different things. For example, an illness, a major stress, a major trauma can switch a gene on. We also know in the nutritional world that we can help to try and switch the genes off again or if not possible to do that, to modulate their expression so that the symptoms and the experience is not as severe and the body and you are supported. What we also know on the left bottom corner is toxins from within our own bodies or from the environment absolutely can contribute to how we are feeling. If we just talk for a moment about the toxins from within our body is the most incredible factory. And I like to call it a factory because it is constantly working very, very busily, and it's trying to follow its blueprint and to create a perfect environment of function. We know that blueprint can go a little bit off kilter. What we also know is that every reaction in the body creates byproducts. That's normal. And our liver, for example, has to spend a large part of its time detoxifying and getting rid of a lot of those byproducts, as does our bowel, our urine, our breath, etc. If our body, for whatever reason, is unable to adequately and effectively deal with those toxins, where are they going to go? They're going to remain in you, in us, in our system, in our tissues, and they're acidic, and they can create inflammation, and they can overwhelm the liver, they can overwhelm the gut, and it can then create another vicious cycle. So part of our treatment is making sure that we're supporting the liver, we're getting you using your bowels correctly, or as I say, excuse me saying this, pooping properly, and eliminating and working with those toxins and byproducts so that they're not getting caught because of the inflammation, the acidity, and the irritation that it can cause, which can then affect our mental health. Of course, they're toxins from the environment, pesticides, chemicals, pollution, skincare products, washing products, you name it, the list is endless. But a lot of them can really have an impact on how our body operates. Then, of course, above that, we've got diet, nutritional deficiencies, and lifestyle. What we put into our mouth will absolutely 100% make a difference. We cannot out-supplement or out-treat a bad diet, because if we're always putting things in that our body doesn't want, we can't overcome that effectively enough just with supplements, because the supplements, the herbs, everything else is meant to support the process. We have to change the diet. We have to adopt the best lifestyle measures that we can. The key, though, is we need to do it in a way that is doable for each person. What's doable for one person may not be doable for someone else. And if we already understand that stress exacerbates everything, the program that you choose to go on to and the speed at which you do it has to be individualized. While one person might be happy to make 5 changes at a time, another person might be able to only do 1. That doesn't matter. It's still a change, and there will still be a benefit because you then build on that benefit. So part of taking care of yourself and your mental health is recognizing what you can realistically do and allowing the process to unfold. As well, if the body is out of balance with things like inflammation, poor gut health, an overwhelmed liver, tired adrenal glands, thyroid fatigue, or any type of autoimmune or chronic condition, While in your mind, you may know and say to yourself, I really shouldn't be having that lolly, or I really shouldn't be having that second piece of cake. Logically, you may know that, but your mind's not in charge. The imbalance in your body is in charge. And the willpower that you're trying to use to overcome that body craving can often make you feel worse. The guilt, the anxiety, the self-hate, the trauma that you put on yourself is what I'm looking for. All of that exacerbates the whole problem. So if we understand that if we slowly, to your realistic expectation of what you know you can do, start the process, each change builds on itself, and as your body starts to rebalance, I see it all the time in clinic, you will naturally not want to have that second piece of cake. You'll feel as though the one piece of cake was enough. Yum. That's all I can say. Yum. All right. What we also know is that no system in our body, it works in isolation. So with naturopathy and nutrition, whatever happens in one part of your body absolutely affects everything else. If your gut and liver are unhappy, that will fatigue the rest of your body. If your thyroid, which is the engine of our car, is tired for whatever reason, that will affect everything in your body. So we help all of you, not just one system. I'll just check to see if there are any questions from what I have just said so far. I'm not sure, I'm so sorry, I'm not sure how to get rid of that box that keeps popping up. I'll have to investigate that further. All right, let's continue. So powerful points to ponder. Science tells us that the average person can have approximately 60,000 thoughts a day, and alarmingly, 90 to 90% of those thoughts are the same as yesterday. And out of those, 80% can be negative. What that means is that every day, day in, day out, negative thoughts are occurring and creating further intensity to the point where you can often feel as though there's just no light at the end of the tunnel. If we help the body decrease the inflammation, support the stress, etc., as I explained before, as well as through counseling, through psychology, all those other modalities, we can help change and start to change the process of changing the way we think, which will then help change the way we respond to stress, which can then help the anxiety and the depression that is the end result. Because so often the anxiety and the symptoms of anxiety and the symptoms of depression are not the problem. They are the symptom of all the other stuff that's going in, and that continual record that often just goes round and round and round in your head and helping you take it down. Every thought we have creates the release of chemicals called neuropeptides. Some are absolutely life-enhancing. When we have a joyous thought, when we have a loving thought, those chemicals that are released are just so blissful. We've all experienced that. However, some are also very debilitating, and due to the way we interpret our reality and choose to respond to situations, our body creates the appropriate chemical. As I talk with my clients, every time you feel fear, every time you feel anger, frustration, disappointment, regret, etc., those thoughts stimulate the release of cortisol, adrenaline, other chemicals that have a negative, inflammatory, acidic, fatiguing, draining impact on your body. Joy, love, laughter, happiness, positivity, all of those have a different release of chemicals. And while it's okay that it's a process, even starting a little change can start to change the impact of those chemicals in our body. As we think, we create our internal environment. If flexibility of our mind and body is essential for our health and well-being, the question we ask is, what damage are we doing when 90% of our thoughts are shown to be the same as the day before? The wonderful thing that I know and I've experienced personally and in my clinic working with my clients is we can absolutely change how we think, and we can always then honor how we feel, and our body can reflect that, because we can also say that our body is just reflecting what we are feeling and thinking. And if we can start to help that change, our body will change. And as that happens, it then helps our thinking and feeling continue to change as well. Why our gut is so important. I know I've mentioned a bit of this already. I'll just read it so that it starts to feel more comfortable for you. Gut health is often unfortunately overlooked when it comes to mental health. Our gut is so much more than the system that digests our food. Rather, it is an incredible factory with a collection of trillions of microorganisms, each with their own blueprint and each running functions that are vitally essential for our health, including our mental health. An unhappy gut is an unhappy body. In fact, as I've said already, our gut is our second brain. Our gut is connected to our brain through a link between our brain and spinal cord, our central nervous system, and the enteric nervous system, which is actually found along the lining of the whole gut from the mouth to the anus. And our gut and our brain talk to each other all the time through this link. So if one part is struggling or underperforming, the other one will be affected. Therefore, it is impossible to separate our mental well-being from our physical well-being, and a vicious cycle is often set up with worsening symptoms. However, please know it is a cycle that can be broken, and part of that is through the food that we put into our system. And when a client or someone that I'm just talking to says to me, but I only have one, or I only have a little, even one or just a little for your body can be too much, and therefore impacting on the communication highway between your brain and your gut. Let me check to see if any questions have come through, and then I'll continue. All right, let me just please bear with me one sec. I'm having a bit of a thing here trying to, oh, there we go. I was having a little issue there. What foods cause acidity and what foods relieve acidity? We're going to come to that, so please hold on. Are we talking about acidity in the gut, in the blood, or other parts of the body? That's an excellent question. Thank you very much for asking it. There are certain areas of our body that do need to be acidic in order to operate. For example, our stomach. We need hydrochloric acid to break down protein. So people that often have reflux, people that often feel they're swallowing a brick when they're eating, if you're eating when stressed, if you're eating on the run, if you're not chewing your food properly, all of those can impact how it gets digested in your stomach. What we also know is that with stress and emotional and mental health problems, digestive secretions often slow down and decrease because the bodies become constricted instead of relaxed. For good digestion, we actually need to be relaxed and to allow the digestive secretions to flow. There's a difference of how we look at things when we have reflux. Nutritionally, when a client says to me they have reflux or difficulty or that sense of a brick, I know that they're not producing enough acid. And what's happening is there's a lot of irritation going on, and the stomach is trying its best to actually try and do the digesting, but it's actually not able to. So what we do nutritionally is recommend ways by food to help increase and stimulate those enzymes, as well as potentially having to use nutritional or herbal support to help the process and soothing and healing the lining. We also know if somebody has, for example, Helicobacter, that can also impact how your food's digested in the upper gut, and also if there are any parasites or imbalances in your bugs, which can also impact your digestion as well. So when it comes to the blood is maintained in a very specific balance, and it uses calcium often from our bones in order to do that. Apple cider vinegar is very good in answer to that question for your gut. So one of the things that I often recommend clients start doing to see if it can start to make a difference is having some apple cider vinegar in warm water. You don't need a lot. I never recommend more than a teaspoon. I know there are a lot of people who do a tablespoon or more. I think the body works better when we give it small amounts of information and we don't hammer the body. So you may find that having some apple cider vinegar before your meal, or in a salad dressing, or even some lemon, that can get the digestive secretions going. Bitter foods, whether it's something like rocket or endive, all those types of foods can also help stimulate our digestive secretions. If you're extremely stressed, very anxious, etc., we generally recommend more cooked food than raw food. And it doesn't have to be cooked to death. It can be lightly cooked or steamed, because a very constricted, tight, upset tummy needs more energy to digest raw food. If it's been slightly cooked already, the process of digestion is easier. Excuse me one moment, I've got a tickle in my throat. Excuse me. Okay. So, eating for your mental health. The importance of a good diet and lifestyle cannot be overstated. Indeed, it is not complicated which foods need to be avoided and which foods can be enjoyed. The challenge is being motivated and compliant and knowing that it is a long-term dietary and lifestyle change. And this is why I believe it's so important that we encourage you, and I encourage my clients to do it in a way that is realistic for you, because it is a lifestyle change. And it's also why treats are so important, because the moment you start to feel deprived is the moment you go off the rails, or you throw your hands in the air and say, this is just too hard, etc. And that's just not good for you or for your loved ones or for anybody. Where's my thing to, there we go. And here I say it again. The wonderful news is that I believe that we can all enjoy a treat every day. It is not to be a diet of deprivation, as all that will do is cause stress and non-compliance. Some days will be easier than others. There will be times that you fall off the wagon, and it is absolutely okay. And all you need to do is remove the guilt, get back on the wagon, and work out why you fell off, so that you can then work out strategies that may prevent it in the future. And generally, it's an emotional reason why you fell off the wagon. Something upset you. If we can work out what that something is, we can work out ways to help you so that should it happen again, you don't suddenly feel straight away, oh, I need to go and eat that block of chocolate, or I need to go and eat that packet of, Tim Tams, etc. What are our general guidelines? And I hope this then answers that previous question. So, in order to heal the gut, decrease inflammation, support the stress response system, and support the production of the needed neurotransmitters, it is ideal to avoid. I haven't written reduce there, I've written avoid, so that you just start to get that idea. When you do it in practice, even starting to decrease can start to make a change. So it is ideal to avoid gluten. Now, gluten we know is found in wheat, rye and barley, and through cross-contamination in oats. You can buy gluten-free oats. Excuse me one moment. I'm not sure why my doorbell's going. I'll be right back. Hello. Thank you. Do you want to just leave it there? Thanks. Can you leave it there? Yes, just leave it there, please. Brenda. Thank you. Thank you. My sincere apologies. Okay. With gluten, what gluten does in the body is it's extremely irritating to the gut lining. Earlier on, I talked about how the brain and the gut communicate together. Anything that irritates the gut lining can irritate that communication. The body's immune system, 70 to 80% of our immune system lives in our gut. If the immune system is activated, if the irritation which causes inflammation continues, that communication and the production of the very important neurotransmitters, nutrients, etc., is interrupted. And what happens is substances that should stay where they are can come in to where they shouldn't, and substances that should happen may not. Often people will start just by avoiding wheat. Sometimes it's not enough to just avoid wheat. We actually need to avoid all gluten. I'm often asked, will I ever be able to go back onto wheat or gluten? That is a very individualized answer, because for many people, it's never going to be okay. They may be able to tolerate it once a week. They may not be able to tolerate it at all. And we then work with what are all the alternatives that you can enjoy instead of having to have wheat and gluten. There's a lot out there that is fantastic. Unfortunately, there's a lot out there in the alternatives that are not good at all and can also create issues, which is why we need to always be aware of reading labels and knowing about ingredients. And as I say that, I just think to myself, maybe we should run an hour on label reading and nutritional profiles and stuff. Sorry, that idea just came to me. I'll talk to Dunera about that idea. The other thing as well is sugar. What does sugar do? Very simply, sugar equals inflammation. If there's inflammation, we know there's an imbalance. Even though fruit is delicious and can be very beneficial in many ways, it is still sugar. And often when we're working with mental health, depending on the severity of your symptoms, coming off fruit initially is part of the program. Certainly, dried fruit is essential to avoid as much as possible. I know how difficult that can be. We all love dates, figs, etc. They are concentrated sources of sugar, and very often they're not chewed properly, and you're taking it into a system that's very tight with decreased digestive capability anyway, and it's fermenting, and you may get wind, bloating, constipation, etc. Anything white flour, white sugar, processed foods, all of those, absolutely no nutritional value at all, just irritation. Alcohol. Alcohol's an interesting one, and I generally find that the best way to work with alcohol with clients is by decreasing. If you are somebody who is able to just say, right, I'm happy to go off alcohol, that's fantastic. Not everybody is able to do that. So even starting to decrease the amount that you're having, coming off beer, a lot of people react to wine. So spirits is often a better choice to go onto than any of the other forms of alcohol, and that we then support your liver as well, because the sugar plus the alcohol has to be metabolized by your liver. And if your liver is already overwhelmed, what's going to happen? It's just not going to do its job. And often we can call it an angry liver, and it's exacerbating the symptoms that you're experiencing. Cow's dairy can be very difficult for many people to digest. Lactose is one part of it, which is the milk sugar. The other part of cow's dairy is the protein. And the way that I describe it is that it's like fitting a square peg into a round hole. They don't match very well. And it causes mucus, irritation, inflammation, etc. Goat's dairy, on the other hand, is more similar to human. So goat's cheese, feta, halloumi, goat's milk, those are a better choice than having the cows. And then, of course, stimulants. Now, when I say that, most people, 99%, really enjoy coffee. I get that. And you can continue to have your coffee. It's when you have your coffee that is so important. So some general guidelines. I've kept this very broad because we don't have a lot of time today. So if we were to look at diets, the Mediterranean diet is often talked about because it is associated with lower incidences of anxiety, depression, and psychological distress. And it includes vegetables, lean protein, quality essential fatty acids, and whole grains, often limiting those starchy grains and vegetables. However, in some people, it's okay. In other people, it's not. And that's why, you know, we're all unique individuals. We're all different. So what works for one person may not work for someone else. And that doesn't mean one's better than the other. We just are all beautifully unique. So we try and we observe. We try and we observe. And when your body comes back into a better state of balance, you can trust that the information it's giving you is accurate. For example, somebody will stay off gluten for, say, they've been off gluten and cow's milk for 3 weeks, and they've already noticed the bloating's better, they're pooping better, their brain fog's gone, they feel better, they have a little bit more energy, you know, the anxiety's gone from an 8 out of 10 to a 6 out of 10, all sorts of things, you know, they're sleeping better. And then they decide that they're going to go and have a pizza where they've got the gluten crust with the cheese, etc. The next day, they feel sluggish, brain fog's back. They just feel, you know, horrible. Their body is saying to them, what have you just done to me? That was not okay what you did. And it's letting you know that the food you ate wasn't all right. The question then becomes, will you listen to the information that your body has given you or not? And that in itself is a process as well. Regular protein and healthy fats intake are also important to help with blood sugar regulation and blood glucose stabilization and mood control. One of the things I find very common in practice is because people are concerned about their weight or they go on to particular diets, they start to lose very important nutrients and very important foods. And healthy fats is often one of them. So when I talk about healthy fats, I'm talking about avocado, coconut, olive oil, nuts and seeds. You don't need a lot, just a little bit, but the brain needs to be oiled. The nervous system needs to be oiled. Healthy oil, not the other oils. Let me check questions and then I'll go through an example of some food and make sure that I'm answering questions that are coming up. Let me just go up here to make sure I haven't missed anything along the way. What is the best time of the day to have our main meal? Lunch or dinner? Lunch. So in actual fact, the best time, the best meal for many people is actually breakfast. and then, you know, so you have a good breakfast, you can have a really good lunch, but you have a much, much smaller dinner. And it's the portions that are the key. So what I'll often say to clients is, when you serve up your dinner the way you would normally have served it up, then take half of that onto a plate, and that's what you eat. The other half can be a meal for tomorrow. And that way, you're actually helping decrease the amount you're taking in the evenings. If one is very windy, it's working out, firstly, why the wind is there. So from a food perspective, it's often could be gluten, dairy, sugar. Beans and legumes can cause a lot of wind in people, for example, as well. The other thing is are you digesting your food properly or adequately? Are you eating on the run? Are you chewing properly? All those different things. One of the ways to then help that is to avoid the most common wind-causing foods, and the other way, as well as eating slowly, etc., is often going on to a probiotic, because it's often a sign that the balance within the gut is not as good as we want it to be. Now, I'll just say I'm not able to recommend any brand names or particular products. Unfortunately, that's something, so I can just do it generically. Okay, they say 1 glass of red is beneficial for the heart. Yes, that can be true. However, it has to be taken in context of what else is in the wine and how your overall health is and your liver. If your overall health and your mood is not okay, the red wine's not okay. There are better things that we can give you to support your heart. The ideal time to have your coffee is morning tea time, not first thing in the morning. If there's one change you start to do, it is changing when you have that coffee in the morning. The reason for that is people are using the coffee to get them going. We know that when that is happening, the body is actually very tired. Your adrenal glands are very tired. Those little glands that sit on top of your kidneys that secrete a lot of your stress hormones. And you're using the coffee as an artificial hammer to get you going. But what you're actually doing, unfortunately, is further fatiguing the adrenal gland. If the thyroid is the engine of the car, our body, the adrenal gland is the accelerator. And we all, unfortunately, have our foot on the accelerator far too much. The other thing is that the end result of the caffeine, etc., in the coffee actually contributes to blood sugar changes potentially, and not as much nutrition being absorbed into your cells. So the best time to have your coffee is actually morning tea time, and enjoy it without the soya milk. An example of a delicious day of food without the cow's milk or the soya milk if possible. So almond milk, goat's milk, rice milk, oat milk, if you can tolerate oats. So on waking, a quarter lemon or 1/2 to 1 teaspoon of apple cider vinegar in a glass of warm water. The warm water is important because cold water is constricting. Warm water is relaxing. And what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to flush your kidneys, flush the liver a little bit, and prepare your gut for digestion. Breakfast could be a couple of eggs plus avocado. So eggs would be a protein and a healthy fat as well. Avocado would be a healthy fat. Spinach would be lovely carbs. And you could have 1 to 2 slices of gluten-free toast if you wanted to. That is a comprehensive meal that feeds all aspects of your body. Or you could have oats porridge, not Uncle Toby's quick oats, but proper oats, ideally, served with almond milk with some nuts and seeds. The seeds could be hemp seeds, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, chia seeds. The nuts for the brain, walnuts, can be excellent. Almonds can be lovely as well, plus berries. Now, berries, particularly blueberries, are fantastic for brain health. So that is something that's optional, fresh or frozen, totally okay. Let me come here. Or you could do a protein smoothie with a protein powder so that we help you get the protein to support your brain and your body. You could use it with either half coconut water to water or half almond milk to water or all water plus berries. Add some walnuts, add some hemp seeds, and you could add some cacao powder if you wanted to as an optional extra for a chocolate smoothie. And the cacao's also got lovely magnesium, etc. in it, which can also help with relaxation. Another delicious breakfast idea is chia seed porridge soaked overnight. Or an hour, 30 minutes to an hour before you're going to eat it, because we want those chia seeds to absorb the liquid so that they can be utilized really well. And chia seeds are actually really nutritious and beneficial for the nervous system, plus berries, plus walnuts. Morning tea, I've written there, is the ideal time to enjoy your 1 coffee a day. In the ideal world, it would only be 1 coffee a day. I know that that's often not the case, and we just work with bringing it down, You could have a piece of fruit if you didn't have it at breakfast, or not at all if we're needing to do that. And you could have 10 or 5 almonds or 5 walnuts and 5 Brazil nuts. While that doesn't sound a lot, it is enough. The key is in chewing them properly. If you chew them properly, you will find a difference in how you feel eating them compared to just a quick chew and then you swallow and you reach for more. Lunch could be soup or leftovers, or it could be a salad or vegetables plus a protein, for example, chicken, fish, eggs, or tofu, or beans if tolerated. Or it could be a sandwich using gluten-free bread with a protein, plus spinach or rocket, avocado for your healthy fats, and other salad ingredients. Some suggestions for afternoon tea could be some almonds and walnuts and Brazil nuts again, or vegetable sticks with hummus or tahini, yummy, or some gluten-free crackers with nut butter, for example, almond nut butter, cashew nut butter, or ABC, which is almonds, Brazil nuts, and cashews. Because what's really good in the afternoon, particularly as the body fatigues, is giving you protein to help you over that afternoon slump where you're often reaching for the sugar. If you know that you dip around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, what you would like to be doing is around 2:30, 2:45, reach for your snack, because we want to offset the slump from even happening. Because by then your body's in crisis and we don't want that to happen at all. The other thing is that making sure you're drinking enough water through the day. In the afternoon, you could also have a lovely herbal tea that can also help with giving you some fluid and supporting your mood as well. Dinner could be something like vegetables with your protein of choice. You could have some quinoa as a grain, well, a seed if you wanted to as well with it. There's lots and lots of options, but basically we're wanting some protein, lots and lots of vegetables, some healthy fats, and some starch if tolerated. And at night, you can enjoy some delicious dark chocolate. I know I usually do, with a relaxing herbal tea. What I've done for you as well is I've written down here food sources of some very important mental health nutrients. With the time that we've got today, I can't go, unfortunately, through everything. So I wanted to give you as much overview as I could and give you some ideas as well of the different foods. For example, zinc, vitamin D, vitamin C, magnesium. One of the most important functions, as well as neurotransmitter production of vitamin C, is it's essential for the stress response system, as well as the vitamin B. So you know, if a door slams and you jump, we already know that that's telling us that your adrenal glands, your stress response system, your fight or flight response has been impacted and is not as good as we want it to. So while you may be reaching for the B vitamins, never forget vitamin C. It's absolutely essential. Just before I go on a little bit more, I'd like to share why I think as well why you may be experiencing things that are more acute at the moment. I'd said I would and I planned to earlier, but I'd like to now. In the ideal world, our body's stress response is on an even keel. And when a stress happens, no matter what that stress is, we have a reaction or a response. We have a burst of adrenaline. We can have a burst of other hormones, and we face whatever this trauma is, whatever the danger is from the fight or flight, and then our body should be able to go back to a state of resting balance, ready for the next event. Unfortunately, what happens and what has happened in our world over decades, and what is extremely acute at the moment, is the body does not go back to that resting state. It remains triggered. And what happens is that the set point keeps rising, and then keeps rising, and then keeps rising, to the point where the tiniest event causes a huge reaction. And you'll often think or say to yourself, I just don't understand why that's upset me so much. It never used to. Or the amount of your response surprises you. And that's because your body has become so overwhelmed and so triggered that it takes a tiny thing to have a huge reaction. What is so good is that with diet, nutrition, counseling, herbal medicine, you name it, acupuncture, chiropractic, osteopathy, whatever, we can start to rebalance that set point, and it can start to slowly come back so that you start to have a better response to a stress. And part of that is through the food that we eat and lifestyle, which brings me here. Exercise is essential. Does not have to be hammering yourself at the gym. In fact, when the body is super inflamed, super fatigued, hammering yourself at the gym can make you worse, because you may find that you feel fantastic while you're exercising after you've had your coffee to get you to the gym. But soon after, you're exhausted because you're using artificial energy, because your petrol tanks are empty, and you're using the exercise for the happy chemicals. We have to change the type and amount of exercise you're doing. So we know that we produce happy chemicals when we exercise, and it is so important to get the blood moving, but it's the amount and type, and it can vary from person to person depending on your overall health, the level of inflammation, your age, etc. If you are a smoker, stopping smoking is crucial. Liver toxicity, inflammation, etc. Good sleep hygiene and adequate sleep is essential. And we know, unfortunately, how many people have insomnia or have difficulty going to sleep or staying asleep. Going to sleep too late. In the ideal world, and I know you may laugh or smile when I say this, ideally you're asleep by 10 p.m. It is better to go and have an earlier sleep and literally wake up with the sunrise or a bit before that, because our greatest healing and repair happens in the earlier part of our sleep. And even if you go to sleep at 2 a.m. but sleep till 10 a.m., you may have gotten the hours, but you never got the quality. In the ideal world, we turn the television off, and we certainly don't watch cops and robbers and get the adrenaline kick, because that sped you up again. And for sleep, you need to be relaxed. You need to be unwinding. And the computer, the phone, all those sorts of things affect our circadian rhythms. They affect our sleep cycle, the production of our relaxing hormones. And it's so important to start considering making changes. The other thing is, it's worthwhile considering switching off the Wi-Fi in your house, because the EMF, that can also impact our circadian rhythms, our sleep patterns, and our anxiety and mental health. So I know for myself, I turn off my Wi-Fi at night and turn it back on in the morning. Now, we know that all of these changes, there's a lot to consider. Just starting something can start the ball rolling. Meditation, relaxation, yoga, and Tai Chi. I'm smiling as I say that because meditation does not have to be sitting in the lotus position, meditating. Washing the dishes, not putting them in the dishwasher, washing the dishes, ironing, going for a walk. If all you're doing is focusing on the task, so when you're washing the dishes, breathe while you're washing the dishes. Put some music on, turn the TV off, don't talk on the phone. That is a form of meditation. Anything that holds your attention and you can breathe is a form of meditation. For a very busy mind and a very worried mind, suddenly sitting and breathing, that's often not going to work. So we have to look at other options, guided visualizations. We know there are lots of apps out there that you can use. Anything that helps, doing a yoga class, anything will help the process. As I've said, turning the phone and computer off regularly, and importantly, 1 to 2 hours before going to bed. Avoiding watching cops and robbers shows at night because it pumps up the adrenaline and can prevent relaxation. Not playing computer games before you go to bed at night because you're pumped. And we need relaxation. We need the relaxing nervous system to kick in order to have good sleep. And of course, and I know that there's lots of different opinions at the moment around hugging, I get that, but hugging something, whether it's a tree, a toy, a person, a photo, we need to have that connection to allow the production of some of those lovely chemicals to happen to calm ourselves down. Why there is no magic pill. I know I've gone over time. I'm happy to keep going. I totally understand if you need to leave. Thank you for listening. For those of you that are still with me, I'm happy to keep going. In my clinical experience, unless the underlying issues are addressed and treated, the body and mind may not heal as much as it potentially can. What I do know is just doing one or two things can start the ball rolling. And as each person experiences their mental health symptoms and conditions differently, there is no one solution for everyone. What works for one person may not work for another. We are all unique. Some points to take away with you. The reasons you are experiencing your current symptoms and conditions are often many and usually all interrelated. If you have the palpitations, if you have the sweatiness, the racing thoughts, the cold hands and feet, the clamminess, all those, so common anxiety symptoms, they're things that we need to do to support the symptoms. And we need to go deeper and change that level of trigger and where your set point has become. Natural therapies, including diet, supplements, herbal medicines, and as I've already said, whether it's acupuncture, counseling, psychology, osteopathy, chiropractic, kinesiology, the list is endless, may offer treatment strategies to support you and can work safely alongside your medications. Diet and lifestyle are crucial. Mental health cannot be supported by supplements and medications alone. Often you need to also have some counseling, talk, because it's very hard to get it out to change the picture in our own minds if we're not also getting it out. Journaling, for example, coloring in, for example, are all one, doing a crossword, something that can just get it out and help change in that moment the intensity in your head. Testing for food sensitivities and allergies, various blood and urine tests, and tests to check for genetic markers and nutrients particular to mood, anxiety, and depression may be considered to support your treatment regime. For example, MTHFR testing, pyrrole testing, gluten intolerance, etc. It can all be discussed with your particular health practitioner. Compliance is so important. If you want to be as well as you possibly can, you need to do the work. However, it will not take long to start to notice changes in your body, mind, and spirit as you start to make the changes. Thank you. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope it's been valuable for you. You can see my mobile number. You're welcome to contact me with any questions. And as I said before, you're welcome to, you have access to the slides. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.